Hi and welcome back to the next episode Up the Shed. Recently I was approached by an elderly gentleman that lives down the road from me. He's a retired carpenter and he's asked me if I can make one of these marking out gauges, like centering gauges. You can use regardless of the size of the wood. It always picks up the centre. He has trouble with his hands now at his age, and so using a normal marking gauge is very difficult for him. So we've gone over a couple of designs, and he's happy with what I'm going to suggest. I've added a few extra bits in that he's not aware of, which will make it easier for him to make other joints as well, rather than just picking up the centre. And I'm hopeful we can get this done in one day. It'll be a lovely little project to do, and it will help him out, you know, in keeping his passion alive, sort of thing. So I've done a small drawing, so we'll get you into the bench, have a quick look over that so you can see exactly what I'm doing, and then we'll crack on. There's a little bit of work in the milling machine to do, in the lathe to do, and then the majority of the work will be in the milling machine. So let's get you into the bench. Okay, well, as you can see, we've got basically a flat bar. So I've got some 10mm, just a 10mm bit of stock here that I'm taking out the scrap bin essentially. Some weir 20mm wide and about 120mm end to end. So the way this works is that whatever distance you're going to choose, so I've picked up 100mm to be my maximum distance that we can sort of measure, and make sure that the timber is always in between. So I've picked up the centre points, that's the centre mark. I've picked up the quarter points of 25mm from this edge, so that'll be the quarter, and I've picked up 1/3, so 16.67 from the middle. So essentially this means that no matter how you turn this to make it fit the piece of timber that you're working on, it will always pick up the centre, it will always pick up the quarter if you want it, and it'll always pick up 1/3. So that allows him to do not only half lap joints but things like bridle joints, mortise and tenon joints. You can use this as a marking gauge. And what we're going to do, although I've got small holes here for essentially a pencil to go through, what I've decided is I've got some 6mm threaded rod here. So I'm going to turn one end down to a point, and I'm going to open these out and make these 6mm threaded holes, and then what that will allow me to do is actually thread this down so the point literally just sticks below the surface, and then there's just a couple of brass nuts we'll use just to lock it off. As you can see here, the two sort of side guides will be 10mm, so I've got another drop here, and we'll just put a 6mm thread through there and then lock them in with some Loctite. So yeah, height of these doesn't really matter. I think I'm going to make these about, I think I'll draw these at about 15mm or so, but it's not really essential. Yeah, so that's what they are. So we're going to chuck this in the lathe. We'll get these made first, and then we'll crack on with the actual plate itself. I'm sure somewhere in there is a 20mm by 120mm doodad. So yeah, cracking. I'll chuck this in the lathe and we'll crack on. Okay, as you can see, we've got the stock in the chuck. So let's make sure we've got enough there. Let's get to turning. It's a bit loose, that is. But what we'll do, I'm hoping that will tighten down enough. We'll get a grooving tool in here, a parting off tool, and just put a groove to relieve the back of those threads, and then we'll part it off. So all good. I'll bring you back when we've done that. Okay, well, as you can see, we're back at the bench. The two little guides are done, and other than really taking a bit of threaded rod and cutting it down and sharpening one into a point, we're done with the lathe work. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to get this marked up off camera, just roughly to size, and get it cut out. I'll just get that done with a grinder. I'm not going to show that. I'm sure you've all seen people grinding metal before and cut it. So we'll get that done, and then what I'll do is I'll bring you back when we're at the mill, ready to start getting this down to dimensions, and then getting the holes drilled for the guides and the marking point to go through the holes individually. So okay, so yeah, as I say, so I'll bring you back when we're at the mill. Okay, well, that's our 5 holes done. That's the 2 guides, centre 25 and 1/4 and 1/3. So I'm just going to deburr the backs, and then all I need to make is the little M6 marker that goes in the actual holes. So yeah, so I'll see you back at the bench. Okay, well, we're back at the bench, so it's just really a case of assembling. So all I've done here, I've taken a piece of threaded rod, M6 threaded rod, and I've just turned a 60-degree point on the end, and there's a couple of nuts there to lock it in place. You must get away with one. So all I'm going to do is get some thread lock on these so that they don't come out at all. The first one. So they're nice and tight, and then all we need to do here, I'm going to use the centre one just for demonstration, but this needs to come through so it's just literally poking through the other side really, and then we can tighten that down and then just belt and braces really, tighten this on, and that's it. So let's get a piece of timber. So this is just a rough piece of, I think it started life as a bit of 4x2 maybe, it's been cut down the middle. So let's see how we go. So it's literally, as I say, got 100mm maximum distance, and regardless of what piece of timber you use, the centre will always be the centre. So it's the centre there, or it's the centre there. And similarly for the quarter distance, you know, it's a quarter from one side, regardless of the thickness of the timber, and the same for thirds, it's a third regardless of the thickness of timber, because I've made sure that all my measurements are from the inside faces of here and not the actual centres of the pins. Okay, so let's just see how this works. It just needs to be twisted between the two and then pulled down a couple of times. Okay, so just going to get a pencil. There's our centre line. Let's bring it back the other way. Looks bang on to me. Must we do with coming out a little bit more. Try it on a different face. Let's try on this face, get sort of square edges. Okay, so you need to lock the two sides first and then push down and pull through. That's too fine, but there's our centre line. It's all good. So it still needs a bit of a messing around, getting at the right height really, but essentially that's it done. I'm hoping that the gentleman I've made it for, Neil, that'll be sort of what he's looking for. And with a piece of wood held in a vice, he can use both hands, you know. So he's struggles with dexterity in his hands, and his hands become very painful if he's fiddling with like small things. So hopefully this will give him the opportunity to literally, you know, any piece of wood he's working on, he wants the centre line, he can just hold it with two hands and then, you know, just use both and slowly work his way down the side of the timber, you know. And as I say, we've got the thirds for things like, you know, bridle joints where you've got, you know, which is similar to, you know, a lap joint, and you've got a piece taken out, or a mortise and tenon joint. So there's loads of different ways. Obviously, half, you know, if you've got a half lap joint or whatever, then all good. So happy days. So that's it. Made. So bit of adjustment, and then I'll take it down to him. Well, that's the end of this little episode, guys. As I say, all that's left for me to do is to adjust this and then take it down and have a bit of a clear up in the shed here. As always, guys, please stay safe, take care. Many thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.